Most men do not lose attraction because they are unattractive. They lose attraction because they panic. And that panic almost never begins with rejection. It begins with uncertainty. Not knowing where you stand, not knowing what she feels, not knowing what the silence means. The moment a man feels attraction but cannot read the outcome, something inside him shifts. His body tightens. His breathing changes. His thoughts speed up. He starts replaying conversations, analyzing tone, counting response time, searching for patterns that confirm safety. And without realizing it, he enters a psychological state that quietly destroys attraction. Panic. Most men believe panic only happens when something clearly goes wrong. That is not how the nervous system works. Panic happens when attraction feels possible but unstable. Hope mixed with uncertainty is one of the most activating emotional states the brain can experience. Neuroscience research on threat response shows that ambiguity produces stronger stress reactions than clear negative outcomes. The brain prefers bad news over unclear news because bad news closes the loop. Uncertainty keeps it open. And an open loop is torture for an unregulated nervous system. This is why many men feel strangely calm after rejection, but completely ungrounded during mixed signals. Rejection ends the story. Uncertainty forces the story to keep playing. This is where most men begin to self-sabotage attraction. When uncertainty appears, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. Fight, flight, freeze. But in dating, these responses do not look dramatic. They look subtle. Fight becomes pushing. Flight becomes emotional withdrawal. Freeze becomes obsessive overthinking. Most men do not recognize these responses as panic. They call them interest. They call them honesty. They call them effort. But the body is not trying to connect. It is trying to regain control. One of the first panic behaviors men exhibit is urgency. They respond faster than usual. They initiate more frequently. They move emotionally closer before the moment has settled. They believe speed will stabilize the situation. But urgency does not create safety. It creates pressure. Psychological studies on attachment patterns show that anxious attachment behaviors increase proximity, but reduce attraction over time. Why? Because urgency signals emotional instability. It communicates that the man cannot remain regulated unless the outcome is secured. Attraction does not respond to instability. It responds to grounded presence. Another panic behavior is reassurance seeking. Men ask where things are going. They ask how she feels. They ask if everything is okay. This feels honest and mature. But reassurance seeking is not communication. It is regulation. The man is using her response to calm his nervous system. Attachment research consistently shows that repeated reassurance seeking reduces attraction because it transfers emotional responsibility. She is no longer simply relating to him. She is stabilizing him. And the moment a woman feels responsible for a man's emotional state, desire begins to shut down. Another panic response shows up as over-explanation. Men explain their intentions, their timing, their emotions, their behavior. They do this to avoid being misunderstood. But socially and psychologically, over-explanation is a low-status signal. It communicates fear of judgment, fear of being misread, fear of losing approval. Studies on social perception show that excessive justification is associated with insecurity. And insecurity is not attractive. As panic deepens, men begin to manage the emotional field. They monitor her tone, her response length, her emotional temperature. They adjust themselves accordingly. If she becomes distant, they become warmer. If she becomes slower, they become faster. If she pulls back, they lean forward. This is not connection. This is emotional negotiation. And emotional negotiation destroys polarity. Desire requires two separate emotional centers. When one person constantly adjusts to the other, attraction flattens. The interaction stops feeling spontaneous. It starts feeling managed. Another panic-driven behavior is excessive availability. Men clear schedules. They make themselves always reachable. They remove friction and boundaries. They believe this demonstrates commitment and interest. But behavioral psychology shows that value is associated with containment, not accessibility. When a man is always available, he communicates that he has no stable center outside the interaction. No structure, no gravity. And without a center, attraction has nothing to orient toward. Here is the part most men misunderstand. Uncertainty is not the enemy of attraction. Intolerance of uncertainty is. Attraction requires the ability to remain regulated without knowing the outcome. Men who remain attractive are not certain. They are contained. They can tolerate ambiguity without turning it into behavior. They can sit with mixed signals without collapsing into action. They do not rush to stabilize emotional uncertainty, because their nervous system is not dependent on the result. This is why calm men feel dangerous in a quiet way, not aggressive, not dominant, unreactive. Unreactive presence creates tension. Tension fuels desire. Panic destroys it. Most men believe the solution is action. Send another message. Clarify intentions. Push the connection forward. Reduce ambiguity. But action driven by panic always worsens the situation, because it adds pressure to a space that already feels unstable. What actually changes everything is not doing less. It is being able to stay regulated while doing nothing. To feel uncertainty without trying to resolve it. To allow attraction to exist without immediately needing safety. This is the difference between men who quietly hold attraction and men who unknowingly collapse it. One tries to control uncertainty. The other allows it to exist. And that difference is not about confidence. It is about nervous system strength. That strength does not come from tactics. It comes from learning how to stay centered when attraction does not yet have a shape. And that is where the real work begins. If you follow the pattern closely, the panic men experience around attraction is not random. It has a source. And that source is not women. It is not dating culture. It is not modern relationships. It is conditioning. Most men were never taught how to stay regulated in emotional uncertainty. They were taught the opposite. From a young age, men learn that clarity equals safety. You are praised when you know the answer. You are rewarded when you act decisively. You are respected when you solve the problem. Uncertainty is treated as weakness. So when attraction becomes unclear, the nervous system does not interpret it as neutral. It interprets it as danger. Not because something bad has happened, but because the situation feels uncontrollable. Psychological research on control and anxiety shows that loss of perceived control activates the same threat circuits as physical danger. The body does not differentiate between emotional uncertainty and real risk. It only knows that control has been lost. And when control is lost, the body reacts. This is why men panic even when nothing negative has happened. The attraction is still there. The connection still exists. But because it is undefined, the nervous system enters survival mode. This is also why men often confuse attraction with safety. They believe attraction should feel secure, predictable, and confirmed. But desire does not work that way. Desire exists in a space between knowing and not knowing. Too much distance kills desire, but so does too much certainty. Men who panic at uncertainty try to collapse that space. They push the interaction toward clarity. They ask questions that demand resolution. They initiate conversations that force definition. They behave in ways that try to anchor the outcome. And every time they do this, attraction loses oxygen. Another layer beneath panic is identity threat. When attraction is uncertain, many men do not just feel unsure about the relationship. They feel unsure about themselves. They start asking internal questions. Am I enough? Did I do something wrong? Am I being replaced? This turns uncertainty into self-judgment. Research on self-worth and rejection sensitivity shows that men with fragile self-concept experience attraction uncertainty as a threat to identity, not just connection, so they react intensely. They try to prove value. They try to re-establish importance. They try to regain position. But attraction is not restored through proof. It is restored through presence. Another reason men panic is because they confuse emotional intensity with progress. They believe that feeling more means moving forward. So when intensity drops or becomes inconsistent, they assume something is wrong. But emotional intensity naturally fluctuates. It is not meant to be constant. Men who cannot tolerate fluctuation interpret normal emotional variation as loss, and loss triggers panic. This is where many men begin to overinvest. They increase effort. They increase availability. They increase emotional output. They believe effort will compensate for uncertainty. But attraction does not respond to effort. It responds to how grounded you are while effort is optional. There is also a biological factor that most men never consider. Testosterone and dopamine interact differently under uncertainty. Neuroscience research shows that dopamine spikes in anticipation, not fulfillment. But when anticipation becomes prolonged without regulation, dopamine turns into agitation. The brain moves from curiosity to craving. Craving is not attractive. Craving is felt as need. This is why prolonged uncertainty without nervous system regulation turns desire into desperation. The man feels it internally as urgency. The woman feels it externally as pressure. And pressure kills attraction. At this point, many men believe the solution is emotional suppression. They try to act indifferent. They try to pull back artificially. They try to play games. This fails for a different reason. Suppression creates rigidity. Rigidity feels unnatural. Women do not respond to suppression any more than they respond to panic. The solution is neither acting nor suppressing, it is regulation. Regulation means your nervous system can feel uncertainty without leaking it into behavior. It means you can notice the urge to act without obeying it. It means you can sit with emotional discomfort without trying to eliminate it. This is what emotional strength actually looks like. Not confidence, not dominance, not control, containment. A regulated man does not need to know where he stands immediately. He does not need reassurance to feel stable. He does not need to collapse emotional space to feel secure. Because his sense of self is not dependent on the outcome. This does not make him passive, it makes him grounded. And grounded men change the emotional field around them. Uncertainty stops feeling threatening. It starts feeling alive. This is why women often describe attraction to calm men as confusing. They say things like, "I do not know why, but I feel drawn to him." What they are feeling is regulation. The man is not trying to extract certainty. He is allowing the space to exist. And that space becomes charged. Now here is the most important distinction. Regulation does not mean doing nothing forever. It means acting from choice, not panic. When a regulated man reaches out, it is because he wants to, not because he needs to reduce anxiety. When he speaks, it is because something is true, not because something feels unstable. This difference is subtle but powerful. Women feel it immediately. One feels like pressure. The other feels like invitation. Men who remain attractive long-term are not immune to uncertainty. They feel it, but they do not personalize it. They do not make it mean something about their worth. They allow attraction to unfold without trying to force shape onto it. This is why uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the test, not a test from women. A test of nervous system strength. Most men fail this test because no one ever taught them how to pass it. They were taught to act. They were not taught to contain. But once a man learns to stay centered when attraction has no clear direction, everything changes. His timing slows. His words carry weight. His presence feels calm. Not because he is trying, but because his body is no longer fighting the moment. And that is when attraction stops feeling fragile. It stops feeling like something that must be protected. It becomes something that can grow on its own. This is the paradox men need to understand. Attraction does not need certainty to survive. It needs space. And the man who can tolerate uncertainty without panic becomes the one attraction moves toward naturally. Not because he did more, but because he stopped leaking fear into the connection.